The great hall was full of important people. Humans in fine clothes stood next to aliens from distant stars. Soft music played. Waiters carried trays of food that smelled strange and wonderful. This was the Galactic Diplomatic Dinner, and everyone knew that tonight was special. Ambassador walked into the room and everyone stopped talking. He was 7 feet tall with black scales that shined like polished stone. His eyes were golden, like two small suns. He moved with the pride of his people, the Draconians, who had ruled their part of space for 10,000 years. But was not alone tonight. A small figure walked beside him. This was his only son. The boy was 6 years old, though he looked younger. His scales were soft green, not yet hardened like his father's. His eyes were too big for his face, and they looked around the room with fear. Director Park stepped forward to greet them. She was the head of Earth's relations, a woman of 55 years who had spent her life building peace between species. Her hair was gray, her smile was warm, and her mind was sharp as a blade. "Ambassador," she said, bowing slightly, "welcome to Earth. We are honored by your presence." Nodded, his face showed nothing. Draconians did not smile. They believed that showing emotion was a sign of weakness. For 10,000 years they had trained themselves to feel nothing, to show nothing, to be like stone. Director Park said, his voice was deep and rumbled like thunder. "I bring my son to learn about your people. It is part of our agreement." Looked down at the small Draconian boy. He was looking at the floor. His clawed hands were shaking. "Hello," she said gently. "I hope you will enjoy your time on Earth." The boy did not answer. He pressed closer to his father's leg. Scales darkened slightly. This was embarrassment, though the humans did not know it yet. "He is young," said. "He will learn proper behavior." The dinner began. Everyone sat at long tables covered with white cloth. The food was specially made for each species. The Draconians had raw meat arranged in artistic patterns. The humans had roasted vegetables and fish. Other aliens had foods that glowed or moved or sang. Sat at the head table with Ambassador. Her granddaughter sat beside her, was 8 years old with short black hair and curious eyes. Her parents were scientists working on a distant planet, so she lived with her grandmother. She was a quiet girl who noticed things that adults missed. Watched the small Draconian boy across the table. He was not eating. His food sat untouched. His big eyes stared at nothing. The speeches began. Important people stood up and talked about peace and cooperation. They used big words and spoke for a long time. Thought it was very boring. She looked at again. Something was wrong. The boy's scales had turned pale. His hands gripped the edge of the table. His breathing was fast and shallow. His eyes were wet. Wet leaned forward. Were those tears? She had heard that Draconians could not cry. Their species had evolved beyond tears. It was a sign of their strength, their control over weak emotions. But's eyes were definitely wet. Then the boy opened his mouth, and a sound came out that would never forget. It was not a human cry. It was something deeper, something older. The sound vibrated through the air like a bell being struck. It filled the great hall. It made the glasses shake and the chandeliers tremble. Everyone stopped talking. Every eye turned to the small Draconian boy who was crying. Ambassador's scales flushed so dark they looked like dried blood. In Draconian culture, a child crying in public was the greatest shame. It meant the parent had failed completely. It meant the bloodline was weak. Stood quickly. "I apologize," he said, his voice tight. "This is a Draconian matter. We will handle it privately." He reached for his son, but crying only grew louder. The sound was heartbreaking. It was the sound of loneliness so deep it had no bottom. Director stood up. "Ambassador, please let us help, perhaps our doctors." "No," said sharply, "this is not your concern." The room was frozen. Diplomats exchanged worried looks. The peace treaty, which had taken years to build, was cracking. Everyone could feel it. In the terrible silence, a small voice spoke. He just needs a sister. Everyone turned, had stood up from her chair. She was not looking at the adults. She was looking directly at. Ambassador's golden eyes narrowed. What did you say, human child? Grabbed her granddaughter's arm. Sit down, this is not the time. But did not sit down. She looked at the crying boy with eyes full of understanding. He is lonely, she said simply. He does not have anyone his size. All the big people are too big and too busy. He needs someone to play with. He needs a friend. The hall was completely silent, stared at the human girl. His scales shifted color from dark red to something softer. He was not angry, he was confused. How do you know this? He asked. Shrugged, because I know what lonely looks like. Before anyone could stop her, she walked around the table. The adults held their breath. A human child walking toward a draconian, even a young one, was dangerous. Their claws were sharp. Their teeth were sharper. Stopped in front of. The boy's crying had softened to quiet sobs. His big eyes looked at her. Hi, said. I am. Do you want to see something cool? She pulled a small device from her pocket. It was a toy, a holographic projector that her father had sent from his research station. She pressed a button, and suddenly the air was filled with dancing animals made of light. A rabbit hopped. A bird flew. A fish swam through nothing. His crying stopped. His eyes followed the lights. His scales turned from pale gray to soft blue. This, the humans would learn later, was the color of wonder. A sound escaped from his throat. It was like a chirp, like a small bird greeting the morning. Smile, do you like it? The fish is my favorite. Nodded slowly. His clawed hand reached out toward the lights. The holographic fish swam around his fingers. Ambassador watched his son. The shame was fading from his scales. In its place was something he had not felt in a very long time. He did not have a word for it in the draconian language. Humans called it hope. Director watched the two children, the draconian boy with scales of green, the human girl with kind eyes. Something had changed in the room. The tension was gone. The crisis had passed. But something new had begun, something that would change both their peoples forever. She just did not know it yet. The next morning, Ambassador asked for a private meeting with Director Park. They sat in her office, a quiet room with large windows that looked out over the city. Sunlight poured in, making everything warm and golden. Sat very still. His golden eyes watched the human woman across the desk. She waited for him to speak. The girl said finally, "Your granddaughter, how did she know?" Thought carefully before answering. Children see things that adults forget to look for. Has always been that way. She notices feelings. Was quiet for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors. Was beginning to understand that this meant he was thinking hard about something. Among my people, said slowly, children are rare. A draconian family might have one child in 100 years. We live for thousands of years, so this seems normal to us. But it means that our children grow up alone. Nodded. She had read about this in the diplomatic reports, but hearing it from made it feel more real. Has never met another child, continued. Not in his entire life. He has been raised among warriors and diplomats, people who expect him to behave like an adult, people who see crying as weakness and laughter as foolishness. That sounds very hard, said softly. Scales darkened. I did not think it was hard. I thought it was normal. I was raised the same way. My father was raised the same way. For 10,000 years, this is how draconians have raised their young. He paused. His claws tapped against the arm of his chair. But last night I saw my son smile. He was watching the lights from your granddaughter's toy, and I realized that I have never seen him smile before, not once in 6 years. Felt her heart tighten. She thought of who laughed every day, who smiled at flowers and clouds and silly jokes. The idea of a child who never smiled was painful to imagine. Ambassador, she said, What are you asking? Looked at her directly. I am asking if the girl can spend time with my son during our month on Earth. I want to see if what happened last night can happen again. This was a strange request. Knew that involving children in diplomatic matters was unusual. It could cause problems. People might say she was using her granddaughter as a political tool. But she also remembered the sound of crying, that terrible, lonely sound. I will ask, she said. It must be her choice. They found in the embassy garden. She was sitting on a bench, reading a book about stars. When explained the situation, looked up with bright eyes. Can I really? She asked. He seems nice. His scales change color when he feels things. Did you know that? When he was sad, they were gray. When he saw the lights, they turned blue. I want to know what color they turn when he is happy. Smiled, so you want to help him. I want to be his friend, said simply. Is that the same thing? Ambassador had been standing nearby, listening. Something moved across his face. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. Yes, he said quietly, I believe it is. And so it began. Every day came to the draconian quarters in the embassy. At first was shy. He hid behind furniture and peeked at her from corners, but was patient. She brought toys and games. She showed him picture books about Earth animals. She taught him human songs. Slowly came out of his shell. On the third day he laughed for the first time. Had made a funny face, crossing her eyes and sticking out her tongue. His laugh was strange, like rocks tumbling down a hill, but it was definitely a laugh. Heard the sound from the next room. He stopped what he was doing. He had never heard his son laugh. He did not know that draconian children could make that sound. On the fifth day showed his scales. He was proud of them, even though they were still soft. When touched them gently, they turned a warm bronze color. What does bronze mean? She asked. Thought about it. It means I am glad you are here. On the seventh day they played in the garden together, chased through the flowers, his small claws never quite catching her. She let him win sometimes. He let her win sometimes. They both laughed until they were tired. Ambassador watched from a window. His aide, Vex, stood beside him. Vex was a large draconian with red scales and suspicious eyes. He did not like humans. He did not trust them. This is wrong, Vex said. The boy is becoming too attached to the human. It will make him weak. Did not answer right away. He watched his son tackle into a pile of leaves. Both children were covered in dirt and laughing. I was taught that attachment is weakness, said slowly. I was taught that draconians stand alone, that we need no one. Yes, Vex said, this is the way. But look at him, Vex. His voice was soft. Look at my son. He is not weak. He is strong in a way I have never been. He is happy in a way I have never known. Vex hissed softly. The humans are manipulating you. They are using the child to influence our future leader. This is a trick. Turned to look at his aide. His golden eyes were hard. The girl is 8 years old. She knows nothing of politics. She only knows that she found a lonely boy and chose to be his friend. There is no trick in that. There is only kindness. Vex wanted to argue, but he knew better. Was his commander. His word was law. But Vex made a silent promise to himself. He would watch. He would wait. And if the humans showed their true nature, he would be ready. Meanwhile, a young scientist named was watching everything with great interest. She worked for the department. Her job was to study how alien minds worked. She had been researching draconian behavior for years, but she had never had the chance to observe a draconian child before. What she saw amazed her. Director Park, she said in a meeting, I believe we have discovered something important. Draconian children may have emotional needs that their culture does not recognize. They are raised in isolation, told to suppress their feelings from the earliest age, but their young minds are not ready for this. They need connection. They need play. They need what is found with. Leaned forward. What are you saying exactly? Took a deep breath. I am saying that for 10,000 years, the Draconians may have been accidentally hurting their own children. They thought they were making them strong. Instead, they were making them lonely. And loneliness in any species is a kind of slow poison. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. If it was right, then humanity had something to offer the Draconians that they could not get anywhere else. Not weapons, not technology, not resources. Understanding. The simple, human gift of knowing what a child needs. In the garden below, and were building a tower out of sticks. It kept falling down, and every time it fell, they laughed and started again. Neither of them knew that they were changing history. They were just two children playing in the dirt, happy to have found each other. And sometimes, that is how the biggest changes begin. 2 weeks passed. The embassy was buzzing with talk about the strange friendship between the human girl and the draconian boy. Some people thought it was wonderful. Others thought it was dangerous. Everyone had an opinion. Did not care about opinions. She only cared about her new friend. Every morning she woke up excited. She would eat her breakfast quickly, then run to the draconian quarters. Was always waiting for her at the door, his scales bright with happiness. They had developed their own routines. In the morning would teach about Earth. She showed him pictures of oceans and mountains. She told him about animals like dogs and cats and elephants, was amazed by elephants. He could not believe that such big, gentle creatures existed. In the afternoon would teach about the draconian. He told her about the red forests where his people lived. He described the 3 moons that lit up the night sky. He taught her some words in his language. Her favorite was, which meant chosen friend. Am I your? She asked one day. Scales turned deep gold. This was a color had never seen before. Yes, he said quietly, you are my only one. Ambassador watched all of this with growing wonder. His son was changing before his eyes. The quiet, frightened boy was becoming confident. He spoke more. He moved more freely. He asked questions about everything. But not everyone was happy. Vex had been sending reports back to the Draconian. He described what he called human contamination of the ambassador's son. He warned that was learning weak, human ways. He said the boy would grow up soft and useless. Some leaders on the agreed with Vex. They sent angry messages too. They demanded that he keep his son away from the humans. They said the honor of his bloodline was at risk. Read these messages in his private room. His scales darkened with anger, but he did not reply. Instead, he looked out the window at his son, who was teaching how to make draconian shadow puppets. The boy's laugh echoed across the garden. Made his decision. He deleted the messages without responding. Meanwhile, was having problems of her own. Her research about draconian child development had caught the attention of important people. Some wanted her to publish her findings immediately. They said it would help humans understand the draconians better. But others were afraid. They said the research could insult the draconians. It could damage the peace treaty. It could start a war. Came to Director Park with her concerns. What should I do? She asked. The research is important. It could help draconian children all over the galaxy. But if I publish it now, it might cause more harm than good. Thought about this carefully. Sometimes the right thing is not the easy thing, she said. And sometimes the best time to share truth is not today. Keep your research. Wait. Let the friendship between and show the draconians what is possible. Actions speak louder than papers. Nodded slowly, she understood. The 3rd week brought a new challenge. A group of human protesters gathered outside the embassy. They carried signs with angry words. They shouted that humans should not mix with aliens. They said that children should be protected from dangerous species. Saw the protesters from her window. She did not understand why they were angry. Grandmother, she said, why do those people not like? Sighed, she sat down next to her granddaughter. Some people are afraid of things they do not understand. is different from us. He looks different. He comes from a different world. Some people think different means dangerous. But he is not dangerous, said. He is kind. He shared his last piece of fruit with me yesterday, even though it was his favorite kind. Smiled sadly. I know, dear, but those people do not know the way you do. They only see his scales and his claws. They do not see his heart. Then they are looking at the wrong things, said firmly. Hugged her granddaughter tightly. Yes, she said, they are. That evening, Ambassador asked to speak with. This was unusual. He had always kept his distance from the girl, watching from far away. But tonight, he sat down across from her in the garden. His golden eyes studied her face. He said, I must ask you something important. Sat up straight. She tried to look serious and grown up. Why? Asked simply. Why do you spend time with my son? You must know that some people do not approve. Your own people protest outside. My people send angry messages. You could make your life much easier by walking away. So why do you stay? Thought about this. She was only 8 years old, but she knew that this question mattered. Because he is my friend, she said finally. And you do not leave your friends just because other people are upset. That is not what friends do. Was silent for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors that did not recognize. On my world, he said slowly, we do not have friends. We have allies. We have servants. We have enemies. But we do not have what you describe. We believe that each draconian must stand alone. That sounds very sad, said. Nodded. I am beginning to think that it is. I was raised to believe that needing others was weakness. But watching you with my son, I see something different. I see that caring for another person takes courage. It is easy to stand alone. It is hard to let someone into your heart. He leaned forward. You have given my son a gift that I could never give him. You have shown him that he does not have to be alone. For this, I thank you, small human. Smiled. You are welcome, big draconian. Something happened on his face. His scales turned a warm color. His eyes softened. It was not quite a smile, but it was the closest thing to a smile that had ever seen on a draconian. From a window above, watched his father talking with his friend. He did not know what they were saying, but he could see his father's scales. They were the color of peace. Something warm filled his chest. He did not have a word for it. Humans called it love. The next day, the protesters were gone. No one knew exactly why they had left, but some people said they had seen a small girl with short black hair talking to them through the embassy fence. They said she had shown them pictures on her little holographic projector, pictures of a draconian boy laughing, pictures of two children playing together, pictures of friendship. Sometimes the biggest battles are won not with weapons, but with small acts of kindness. Never told anyone what she had said to the protesters. When her grandmother asked, she just shrugged. I showed them that they were looking at the wrong things, she said. I helped them cease heart. And that was all she would say about it. The day of the remembrance arrived like a storm cloud. Ambassador had explained this ceremony to Director Park. It was the most sacred tradition of the Draconian people. Once a year, they honored their fallen warriors. Every Draconian across the galaxy watched the ceremony on screens. Millions and millions of eyes, all focused on one moment. The ceremony lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of absolute silence and stillness. The leaders stood on a platform and said ancient words. The people watched and remembered. No child had ever completed the remembrance. Draconian children were usually hidden away, kept out of sight. Some were given medicine to make them sleep through it. The elders believed that children were too weak to handle such a serious event, but had made a decision. Will stand with me, he announced. He will complete the remembrance. The Empire will see him. Vex was horrified. Ambassador, this is madness. The boy is 6 years old. He cannot stand still for 6 hours. He will fail. He will cry. The entire empire will witness the shame of your bloodline. Scales hardened. My son is stronger than you think. He has changed in these past weeks. He has grown. He has been weakened by human influence, Vex argued. The girl has made him soft. The girl has made him brave, replied coldly. And I will hear no more arguments. My decision is final. The ceremony began at sunset. The great hall of the embassy had been transformed into a sacred space. Draconian symbols hung from the walls. Candles flickered in ancient patterns. Cameras floated in the air, sending images across the stars to millions of watching Draconians. Stood on the raised platform, tall and proud in his ceremonial armor. Beside him looked impossibly small. The boy wore formal robes that dragged on the floor. His scales were pale with nervousness. Watched from the crowd. She was not supposed to be there. The remembrance was for Draconians only, but Director had pulled some strings. She knew her granddaughter would want to support her friend. The ancient words began. His deep voice echoed through the hall, speaking of battles fought and warriors lost. The language was old and strange, but the meaning was clear. This was about honor. This was about sacrifice. This was about standing strong in the face of death. 1 hour passed, stood still. His scales shifted nervously, but he did not move. 2 hours passed. The boy's legs began to tremble. Standing in one place for so long was torture for a young body that wanted to run and play. 3 hours passed. His breathing grew heavy, sweat formed on his scales, his eyes grew wet. Watched with a tight feeling in her chest. She could see her friend struggling. She wanted to help him, but she did not know how. 4 hours passed, was shaking badly now. His scales had turned gray with exhaustion. Tears rolled down his face, but he did not make a sound. He was fighting with everything he had. Across the galaxy, millions of Draconians watched. Some nodded with approval at the boy's effort. Others whispered that he would fail any moment now. 5 hours passed, could barely stand. His eyes were unfocused. His small body swayed like a tree in the wind. Vex moved toward the platform. He was ready to remove the boy before the final shame. Better to pull him away quietly than to let him collapse on camera. But before Vex could reach the platform, something happened. A small figure broke free from the crowd. A human girl with short black hair and determined eyes. She walked right past the guards, right past the cameras, right onto the sacred platform. Gasps filled the hall. A human had never stood on the remembrance platform. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. Did not care. She walked straight to and took his clawed hand in hers. She did not speak. She did not need to. She just held his hand. His trembling stopped. His scales flushed warm bronze, the color of gratitude. His eyes found hers, and something passed between them. A promise. A strength. I am here. You are not alone. The last hour of the ceremony passed in silence. Continued the ancient words. Stood still as stone. Never let go of his hand. When the final word was spoken, when the ceremony ended, the hall erupted into chaos. Some Draconians were furious. They shouted that the ceremony had been ruined. A human had walked on sacred ground. The traditions had been broken. But others saw something different. They saw a Draconian child who had completed the remembrance. The first child in recorded history to do so. They saw that he had done it while holding a human hand. They saw strength, but not the kind of strength they were used to. Ambassador stepped forward to address the cameras. His voice carried across the stars. My people, he said, tonight my son completed the remembrance. He stood for 6 hours without falling. Many of you saw this as impossible. I believed it was impossible. He paused. His scales shifted to a color that few had ever seen on him. It was the color of deep emotion. But showed us something new. He showed us that strength does not mean standing alone. When he was weakest, he found power in connection. A human child gave him her hand, and he found the courage to continue. Looked at and still standing together on the platform. For 10,000 years, we have taught our children to be alone. We have called this strength. But I wonder now if we were wrong. Perhaps true strength is not about refusing help. Perhaps true strength is about knowing when to reach for another hand. The transmission ended. The cameras went dark. In the silence that followed, finally spoke. She said, "Your scales are a new color. What does this one mean?" Looked down at himself. His scales had turned a brilliant silver, like moonlight on water. He had never seen this color on himself before. "I do not know," he admitted. "I have never felt this way before." Ambassador stepped close. He looked at his son's scales with wonder. "I know this color," said quietly. "I have seen it only in old books. It is the color of soul. It means a bond that goes deeper than blood. It means family by choice, not by birth." Smiled. "Does that mean we are like family now?" Scales grew even brighter. "Yes," he said, "I think it does." From across the galaxy, messages began to pour in. Some were angry, some were confused, but many, especially from parents who had watched their own children suffer in loneliness, were filled with something new. Hope. Maybe there was another way. Maybe their children did not have to be alone. Maybe a human girl had shown them what they had forgotten how to see. 1 year had passed since the knight cried at dinner. The Galactic Diplomatic Hall looked the same as it had that night, the same tall ceiling, the same shining floors, the same long tables covered with white cloth, but everything had changed. Ambassador stood at the center of the hall. This time, he was not here for a dinner. He was here for something far more important. Director Park stood beside him, was there too, along with hundreds of diplomats from a dozen species. Cameras floated in the air, sending images across the galaxy. And in the front row sat 2 children, a boy with green scales that shimmered like emeralds, a girl with short black hair and kind eyes. And they were holding hands as they often did now. It had become their habit. Wherever they went, whatever they did, they found each other's hands without thinking. Raised a scroll made of some ancient material. It glowed faintly in the light. "I have called this gathering," he announced, "to perform a ceremony that has not been seen in 3,000 years. It is called the scale bonding. In the old times before our people forgot how to connect, it was the highest honor we could give." The audience was silent. Even the diplomats who had seen everything were holding their breath. "The scale bonding recognizes a bond that goes beyond blood," continued. "It declares that 2 souls have chosen each other, that they are family not by birth but by heart." He looked at, "1 year ago a human girl saw my son crying. She did not look away. She did not pretend not to notice. She looked at him and understood what he needed, what I, his own father, had failed to see." His voice grew thick with emotion. His scales shifted through many colors. "She said he needed a sister, and she was right." His parents had arrived from their research station for this day. Her mother had tears in her eyes. Her father stood very straight, proud of his daughter. "This ceremony will make it official," said. "Will become sister in the eyes of the Draconian Empire. She will be recognized across our space. She will have the protection of our warriors and the welcome of our worlds." He turned to the children. "But I must ask you both, do you wish this? The scale bonding cannot be forced. It must be chosen freely by both hearts." Stepped forward first. His scales were shining silver, the color of soul. "I choose this," he said. His voice was stronger than it had been a year ago. He had grown so much. "Is already my sister in my heart. I want the whole galaxy to know." Stepped forward next. She was not nervous at all. She had the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. "I choose this too," she said. "Is my best friend. He taught me that family can come from anywhere. I am proud to be his sister." The ceremony began. An ancient song was sung in the old Draconian language. It spoke of bonds that time could not break, bonds that distance could not weaken, bonds that lasted beyond death itself. Then came the exchange. Carefully removed a single scale from shoulder. The boy did not flinch. This scale was freely given, a piece of himself offered to another. Set the scale into a silver pendant and placed it around his neck. In turn, offered a lock of her hair. This was the human tradition, had explained. A piece of oneself given in trust, wove the hair into a beautiful bracelet and fastened it around his wrist. "It is done," announced. "From this moment forward and our siblings, let no one challenge this bond. Let no one question this choice. What the heart has joined, let no force separate." The hall erupted into applause. Diplomats cheered. Cameras flashed. Across the galaxy, millions watched history being made. But Anne did not notice any of it. They were too busy hugging each other. "I always wanted a brother," whispered. "I always wanted not to be alone," whispered back. "You gave me that, you gave me everything." Later that day, Ambassador addressed the Galactic Council. His speech would be remembered for centuries. "We Draconians believed we were strong," he said. "We believed that strength meant standing alone, needing no one, feeling nothing. We raised our children in silence and called it discipline. We them companionship and called it training. We broke their hearts and called it making them warriors." He paused. His golden eyes swept across the assembly. "We were wrong. A human child showed us the truth, not with weapons, not with technology, not with threats or demands. She showed us with kindness, with patience, with the simple act of holding a crying boy's hand." "Humans are small," continued. "They are young, they are fragile, their lives are brief compared to ours, but they carry something that older species have forgotten. They understand that no one should have to be alone. They know that connection is not weakness. They see that caring for another takes more courage than any battle." He looked at, sitting with her new brother. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," said. "Not their ships or their science, their hearts, their ability to see someone who is hurting and choose to help, their willingness to love what is different, their courage to care." The speech ended. The council members rose in standing ovation. For the first time in galactic history, a Draconian had spoken of humans not as primitives to be tolerated, but as teachers to be respected. Years passed. Grew up to become the first Draconian ambassador to establish a permanent cultural exchange with Earth. He worked to build understanding between their peoples. He made sure that Draconian children would never have to grow up alone again. Became specializing in families that cross species boundaries. She helped hundreds of siblings find recognition. She wrote books about connection and kindness. She traveled to dozens of worlds, carrying her brother's scale pendant wherever she went. They remained close all their lives. Even when they were on opposite sides of the galaxy, they talked every day. They told each other everything. They celebrated each other's victories and comforted each other through defeats. At their joint appointment ceremony, a reporter asked what he remembered most from that first dinner on Earth. Smiled. It was a full smile now, something he had learned from his sister. "I remember crying," he said. "I remember feeling so alone that I thought I would break into pieces. I remember shame and fear and sadness so deep I could not see the bottom." He touched the bracelet on his wrist, the one woven from his sister's hair. "And then I remember a girl, a small human girl who did not look away, who saw my pain and chose to step toward it instead of away from it, who held my hand when my whole people told me I should stand alone." He looked at standing beside him. Her hair was longer now, and she wore the scale pendant proudly on her chest. "She taught me that I was wrong about strength," said. "Strength is not standing alone. Strength is letting someone see you cry. Strength is asking for help. Strength is choosing to love even when it is hard, even when it is scary, even when everyone else says you should not." Took his hand, as she had done so many times before. "Strength is family," she said quietly. "And family is not about blood, it is about choice." The reporter wrote down their words. She knew that these words would travel across the stars. They would reach lonely children on 1,000 worlds. They would bring hope to those who had given up on hope. Because that is what humans do. They see the broken and the lonely. They reach out their hands. And they say the simplest, most powerful words in any language. You are not alone. I am here. Let me be your family. And the galaxy, slowly and surely, learned to listen.